There was, and I don't think it ever came out, a special version of Genocyber, which allegedly had 5 minutes of extra footage in, specially filmed by Ohata and directed by him and taken out. I think it was Kiseki Films who were doing it. They were told that they couldn't go ahead with the release including that, and they weren't told whether it was because Ohata didn't want it or because the Japanese licensors didn't want it, but there was a huge hoo-ha over it at the time. Well, and also the BBFC would cut without any regard for pacing or edits or anything else. So
was it cut down?
I don't think it was very cut down, but almost everything had some I think the BBFC made cuts just to show that they were on the job, you know, because the political furore about anime in the UK at the time was so enormous that they really, really needed to demonstrate that they were doing something. Right. And so I think quite often you'd find a couple of seconds here and a couple of seconds there just because they had to justify it to their political masters. It wasn't necessarily... It might have been something. I mean, it's hard for me to say because I never saw anything that I thought couldn't be released with an appropriate certificate, except that Britain, of course, is so weird about sex.
Right. And nunchucks for a while.
Yeah, nunchucks for a while. Well, I get that, because if you've ever seen, and I'm sure you have, I'm sure you've been, in fact, two kids squaring off in the playground with nunchucks, or their version of nunchucks, they always get hurt. Everybody within a 3-foot radius always gets hurt. And then parents come down to school and there are huge complaints. It's too much for the teachers to deal with. And instead of saying, why do you let your kids have these things? They just can't deal with it. It's easier to ban them than expect parents to behave responsibly.
I've just never seen that happen in the States.
Really?
I've never heard of that happening.
Oh, plastic nunchucks were very popular for a while here in the UK. I think Hong Kong did an enormous trade in getting them out of China and sending them over.
I saw them occasionally with when Ninja Turtles was popular,
yeah.
But I don't remember there being incidents like that. I just don't.
And really, really determined kids would actually construct their own from string and bits of wood.
Okay, see, that's the problem.
Yeah.
We're not smart enough for that.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I did that too.
Well then.
You can buy them.
The thing with nunchucks is you're actually much, much safer going up against somebody that knows what they're doing than against somebody that doesn't. It's kind of like a morning star or a flail in medieval combat. You do not want a morning star in the hands of an idiot.
Morningstar, is that the
spike on the chain?
Okay, so my friend Meredith was gifted one for her birthday.
Oh, they're wonderful things.
She couldn't even figure out how to store it because, like, literally anywhere you put it down that wasn't in the box would get damaged.
Yeah,
everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's for. A morning star is for inflicting maximum jeopardy on anything it touches. That is its sole purpose in existence. The kami of morning star is one of the angriest kami you can possibly imagine. But they're so much fun. And the thing is, to use them, you've got to be really, really good because a morning star can
they'll just swing right back at you.
And the real skill is using a morning star on horseback. If you can use a morning star on horseback, you are a great horse person. And also you have that horse really well trained because it's the fastest way to cut an artery in your horse's neck that I know of, using a morning star on horseback if you don't know what you're doing.
Noted.
Yeah.
I'll make sure.
Never do it. All art is a process of falling in love or a process of falling in hate. I mean, take my attitude to Hiro Hiro Araki. When I first saw JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, I thought, what is this? I don't get the art style. I don't understand what he's doing here. I don't get it. And I sat down and talked to a friend of mine about it, and he said, what you don't like in it is the Robert Crumbness. But let the Robert Crumbness go, and you'll see that this is a really interesting style. And my hate turned to love, and I fell in love, and I've been in love with Araki's work ever since. It's the same thing with anime. It wasn't just spite, it was that I thought this is a wonderful medium for telling stories, which is not dependent on having the right acting face or the right big name. You can tell it with any actor's voice. You can tell it with any kind of setting. There are stories here that anyone can pick up. So I loved it. For a science fiction audience, because in Britain, although it had started to even out with the advent of Trek fandom, science fiction fandom was still overwhelmingly male-dominated. For that audience, a hard SF robot mecha focus was really more appropriate. and more likely to get them embedded. We didn't win over a lot of the hardcore science fiction fans because they didn't really think that anything with a moving image belonged to a science fiction convention anyway. They thought it should be books and beer, and that was that. But we won over a lot of other people, and that was good enough.
The open-minded ones.
Yeah. Well, most people are open-minded in their own eyes. I mean, most bigots will say to you, I am the last person to say I won't even consider something, but... And they actually believe that. But I think if you're comfortable in a world that doesn't have moving images in it, you probably prefer to stay there, and that's fair enough. Yeah, that's reasonable. You're the one who's missing out after all. I remember a major promotional event at the Limelight Club in London, which was incredibly trendy. Old church, great space, very gothic. Some of the hip end of fandom was there. We had some wonderfully hip people who were really the wrong people for commercial hip, if you know what I mean, because they actually were. It was the core of their being. And people like me who were, I was frequently told I was far too old to be interested in this stuff. And, you know, at that time, I wasn't far too old. I was just marginally too old. Now I'm far too old to be interested in this stuff. A lot of people who were 12 desperately trying to be 16 had tried to get in and were turned away. So there was this vibe between the 12-year-olds who stole their older brothers' copies of manga videos, persuaded their parents that they could have these, and the 16, 17-year-olds who were desperately trying to get into clubs and occasionally scoring, and the people who would walk into clubs without an effort because they were at first name terms with all the doormen, or related to all the doormen, or occasionally did door jobs themselves. It was that sort of night, and it was actually really great. No, it was terrific because there was such a sense that nobody was getting exactly what they expected. And that's just the best kind of party.